Hey, what's going on, friends? In this video, we are going over 7 books that I think everyone should read in their 20s. These are all books that I read when I was in my 20s, and they all had a tremendous impact on my life and helped me to improve my life in 5 different categories that we're breaking this video down into. And those categories are relationships, productivity, personal finance, career success, and health. So let's get this video started off with the first book on my list, which is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is the book that more than any other book helped me to improve the way that I both build and deepen relationships with other people. Now, this isn't entirely a book about relationships. In fact, about half of this book is a book about productivity. The first 3 habits deal with it. Like habit number 2, begin with the end in mind, is all about planning and understanding your goals. And habit number 3, put first things first, is all about prioritization. But it's habit number 5 that had the greatest impact on me. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. See, most people listen with what Covey calls an autobiographical point of view. You're listening because you're waiting to respond with something from your own perspective, your own experiences. A lot of people don't take the time to really put themselves in the shoes of the other person, consider their perspective, try to see it the way the other person sees it. Covey calls this empathetic listening. And when you can listen empathetically, when you can actually do this perspective shift, you become better able to understand the meaning and the context behind what somebody else is telling you about. And in doing so, you build much better and deeper relationships, and you're able to make the lives of everyone around you much better. So that is my favorite book in the relationship category. And now we're moving on to the productivity category. Now, there are a ton of productivity books out there. I've talked about many of them on this channel, but if you were only going to read one, the one that I would recommend is going to be Chris Bailey's The Productivity Project. Well, this and also Atomic Habits by James Clear, but I in fact made 2 videos about that book, so I'm not gonna include it on this list. And the Productivity Project is a wonderful overview of really the entire field of productivity. So if you're looking for one concentrated book that's gonna teach you all about time management, managing your attention, your energy, procrastination, all these different topics, this is the book that I would recommend. And the best idea that I wanna share from this book is his breakdown of these 6 different procrastination triggers. And this is pulled from procrastination research that has been done at several different universities, where they have found that there are indeed 6 different aspects or qualities of tasks that we tend to put off, of tasks that are unpleasant. So when a task is boring, when it is frustrating, difficult, ambiguous, lacking in personal meaning, or lacking in intrinsic value, i.e. it's not fun, we tend to put it off. And there are a ton of different strategies in this book for fighting procrastination, but I wanna share this idea because once you know these 6 different triggers, you can now start to think critically about your own tasks and ask yourself, if I'm procrastinating, which of these triggers is causing me to procrastinate on this task? And once you know that, you can start to figure out some things you could do to lessen the influence of those triggers. For example, last week I had to go into my accounting software and do a ton of bookkeeping, which is a task that I absolutely hate. So one thing that I've realized is that because this task is boring, one thing I can do to make it a little bit more fun is to add a bit of a challenge to it. So I set a 20-minute timer and I challenged myself to reconcile as many transactions as I could within that time period. Still kind of boring, but a little less boring because I had now set up a challenge. And I also put out some of my favorite music. So overall, those 2 little tweaks made the task just a bit less unpleasant and a bit less boring. And with that, we are now moving on from the productivity category onto the personal finance category, where I have 2 book recommendations for you. And the first one is Your Money, The Missing Manual by J.D. Roth, who was one of the OG personal finance bloggers that I was reading back when I was in high school and college. And this book was really my first introduction to the world of personal finance. And it's really just an overview of a ton of different topics that you need to learn about if you want to manage your money effectively. It talks about debt, it talks about budgeting, talks about credit cards, talks about investing. And the big idea that I would like to share from this book with you in this video is the concept of automated investing. This was the book that taught me that I should automate my finances, essentially put them on autopilot. So what this means is you can put your bills on auto pay, but perhaps even more importantly, you can put your investments on an auto deposit schedule, which is exactly what I did after I read this book. Now on my investment platform, which at the time was Vanguard, I've since moved over to M1 Finance, it works on both of these. I have an auto deposit schedule where every single month money will come out of my bank account and go into my investment account and be invested into a set series of ETFs, essentially mutual funds that I have set up beforehand. And there are two huge benefits to automating your investing in this way. Number one is the consistency of actually investing, because if you have a robot doing your investing for you, you're almost certainly going to invest more over the years than if you were deliberately making the choice whether or not to invest every single month. If you were doing it that way, there are inevitably going to be months when you decide that I'd rather buy a jet ski, or I don't feel like I have enough money. But if it's on a schedule, it just comes out and you don't think about it until 10 or 20 or 30 years later when you have a ton of money invested. You will thank yourself for enabling this robot. Secondly, doing this helps you to avoid what JD Roth calls the behavior gap, which is the difference between what the stock market would have made if you just left it on autopilot and what the average investor makes because of their decisions. And the example that it gives is at a 20-year period between 1988 and 2008, where the S&P 500, which is essentially an index that tracks the entire US stock market, made a little bit less than 8.5% return. But the average investor made only about 1.8%, a huge gap and actually less than the rate of inflation. Now, some of that gap is due to a lot of investors diversifying their investments, which makes them a bit more secure, a bit more hardened against losses and volatility. But a lot of that gap is due to bad decisions that were fueled by greed or by fear or by stupidity. And when you automate your investments, you don't think about the market all the time, and you don't even give yourself the opportunity to make these dumb decisions. Our second book in the personal finance category is one where I regrettably lost the book jacket at some point. So Tony, can you please VFX the image on here for me? This is A Random Walk Down Wall Street by Burton G. Malkiel. And if you are interested in investing at all, I highly recommend reading this book. Now, if you're somebody who just wants a good investment setup and you don't want to think about it, I think the general tips that are in Your Money and Missing Manual and the videos that I am planning for this channel are going to be quite adequate. But if you want to understand investing, this is the number one book that I would recommend. He goes into a lot of detail on how a lot of people, even very smart people, often make a lot of mistakes in the market that will cause them to lose out on potential gains. But the big idea from this book that I want to share with you, it was actually kind of mind-blowing to me, is just how valuable retirement accounts can be for growing your money. In the book, he sets up a hypothetical example where $5,000 is invested every single year for 30 years. And after that period, the money that was invested in a retirement account in either an IRA or a 401k or another tax-advantaged account grew to $1.4 million, whereas the money that was not invested in a retirement account was put into a regular old taxable account only grew to about $900,000. So there's a $500,000 potential earnings gap that is realized simply by utilizing these retirement vehicles. And that is why personally, I do my best to max out my IRA and my 401k every single year, and then and only then put money into taxable investments, and why I would highly recommend you do the exact same thing, unless maybe you're saving for a short-term big purchase like a down payment for a house. Yeet! All right, now that I have damaged my walls from that last book, we are now moving on to the career category. And this is yet another category where I have two different recommendations for you. And I have a very good reason for adding two different books into this category because they are very different and very useful for independent reasons. So the first one that I'm gonna recommend is Pivot by Jenny Blake. And this is a fantastic book for anybody who wants to potentially move or change their careers. And this is a super common thing. A lot of people, especially after they've been in their career for 3 to 5 years, start to realize, hey, I would like to do something different. I kind of don't like what I'm doing right now. And there's these creeping feelings of guilt, right? You're like, well, I spent all this money and all this time in college and I'm moving down this career path. I don't want to lose all this career capital and everything that I've gained. But you have to realize that wanting to change, wanting to move up in the world is actually a very healthy thing. It means that you have this drive to learn and to adapt and to grow. But doing so is a strategic endeavor, and this book has a lot of strategy to offer for that, a lot of case studies, and my favorite concept in this book is her idea of doing pilot tests. So in the TV industry, executives will order a pilot episode of a show if they're not quite sure it's going to do really well. So they're gonna get the pilot episode, see how it does, and if the audiences like it, then they order an entire season. Piloting is essentially a strategy to invest a little bit of time, of money, of resources into a potential direction before going all in on it. And the problem with careers is a lot of people get fed up with where they are and then they quit their job and then they don't really know where to go. So instead, ask yourself, and Jenny talks about this in the book, can I do some little pilot tests? Are there little experiments that I could run in my free time without giving up everything I have right now that would allow me to test out a possible different career shift and see if it's for me, see if I can do it? For example, I really like doing stuff in Notion. I like teaching people how to use Notion. I like to build Notion templates like my task manager template, but I'm not just gonna move on for being a YouTuber, number one, because I like being a YouTuber, but number two, because I'm not sure if making stuff for Notion is a viable career path, or for my particular purposes, a viable addition to my business. So I tried some pilot projects. First, I did a couple of videos on this channel, teaching Notion, doing some stuff, and those did well. And then I started my second channel, Thomas Frank Explains. That's where I create Notion tutorials and template tutorials, and that is now a little bit of a side business where I've invested a bit more than I originally did, but I've still not completely shifted over. So if you have something that you want to do, or if you're fed up with where you currently are in your job, ask yourself, how could I pilot a small change? Our second book in this career category is Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA, and I truly do believe that everyone in their 20s should read this book, because this is a high-level overview of many of the different concepts in business, of sales, of marketing, of value creation, of how to work with others. And when you understand the fundamental concepts of business, you understand the goals and motivations of your employer better, and that makes you a higher value employee. So if you want to get a raise, if you want to get a promotion, if you want to get new and more exciting duties at your job and take on leadership roles, reading a book like this and understanding the fundamentals of business can be a very useful thing to do. Now, the big idea that I want to share in this video from this book is the different types of value creation that he goes through in the book. This was sort of a mind-opening read for me when I went through this section, because a lot of people don't really understand value creation. If you ask the average person, what are the different methods of creating value in business, they're going to answer with two different categories: products and services. But as Josh explains in the book, there are actually quite a few more different types of value creation. And if you're somebody who wants to maybe start a business one day, understanding these and knowing what they are can be very useful to you. So I'm not going to list all of these. I'm going to put them up on the screen here so you can screenshot them if you want, but I do want to highlight just a few of them. Product is a very obvious one. This book is a product. My Notion templates are a product. Service is also pretty useful. A barber is offering a service. But what about a shared resource? Something like Disneyland. That is something that people can come and enjoy, but they don't buy it, and it's not really a service in itself. Also, option was a very interesting one for me. And here's an interesting question. What is the value that a place like Planet Fitness, a gym, is offering to its patrons? We might automatically say it's a service, and that is true, but I think that the main value that a Planet Fitness, especially a big box gym like that, is offering is an option. You are getting the option to do something, but you don't necessarily have to exercise it. So really they're paying for the optionality, not necessarily the service or the shared resource. And that brings us to the health category, where my one book recommendation for you is Dr. John Ratey's Spark, the Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain. And I'm recommending this book literally for everyone, because this book hammered into my brain the need for exercise, not just for my body, but for my mind. As this book explains in excruciating detail, exercise benefits your focus, your creativity, it helps with anxiety, it lessens ADHD symptoms, if you can believe that, it lessens stress and depression, it in almost every way fathomable helps you regulate your mental health. And this was very important for me, because as an ambitious entrepreneur with a pretty computer-based career, it has always been very easy for me to justify skipping workouts, because going to the gym for an hour or two makes me feel like I'm putting off the things that I need to get done. But as this book makes abundantly clear, exercising isn't a waste of time. It isn't taking my work time away from me. It's actually a force multiplier for my work time. Think about it. I can either choose to work 10 or 12 hours a day, skipping all my workouts, probably not sleeping well, probably not eating well. And in that case, each hour that I put into my work is probably only worth about 20 minutes, because I'm spending a lot of it groggy or procrastinating because I just don't feel very focused. Or I can actually get my workout in. I can actually sleep 8 hours. I can actually eat a good diet. And if I do that, maybe I only have time for 6 hours of good work in a day, but every single one of those hours truly is worth an hour. So if I'm taking my health seriously in general and making sure to exercise every day specifically, the value of my time, the effectiveness of it is essentially doubled, and I don't have to work as many hours to get the same amount done. And Spark is really the book that helped me to really take that seriously. Now, if there's one more piece of advice I can give you here, it's that not all these books may be ones that you need to read right now, even if you are in your 20s. Really, the main thing that you and pretty much everything else should be prioritizing above all other skills is thinking critically, especially with respect to your goals. So if you have a goal that is aligned with one of these 5 categories we just went through, then maybe it is worth picking up one of these books. And if you want to improve your ability to think critically, which is incredibly important, then this video sponsor Brilliant has a brand new logic course that you should check out. Learning to think logically and to do things like analyzing worst case scenarios and dealing with unknown information, these are skills that will help you in nearly every area of your career and your life. And Brilliant's Logic course in particular teaches you these concepts in a completely interactive, problem-based approach that makes the learning process a lot more fun and a lot more effective. And they also use this exact same strategy for all their other courses as well, which can help you master math, science, and computer science. In the library, you're gonna find a full math suite ranging from number theory to advanced calculus, along with science and computer science courses tackling everything from electricity and magnetism to machine learning. So if you want to start improving your critical thinking skills and start learning on Brilliant, you can go over to brilliant.org/thomasfrank or click that link right there to sign up. And that link is going to get you 20% off their annual premium subscription. If you're looking for something else to watch, I've got a video right there on James Clear's Atomic Habits, another amazing book. And that video goes through 3 of the biggest lessons in it. Or perhaps you were curious about how I actually make my videos. Well, I've got a full breakdown on my second channel, which you can watch right there. Beyond that, hit the like button for the algorithm, follow me on Twitter for bite-sized content, and I wanna know in the comments down below, what is the #1 book that you recommend for people in their 20s or for people in general? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.